This is the story about the mines in the old town of Mogollon, New Mexico. This old town is just a couple hours' drive northwest of Silver City. While doing research on this old town, I noticed that there were a lot of old photographs in the archives from the 1940s. I decided to place all those photographs at the end of the video into a slideshow, so make sure you stick around to the end if you like photos from that era. All the descriptions on the photos are what was written in the archives. It was back sometime in the 1870s that Sergeant James Cooney, who was stationed at Fort Bayard, was out on patrol one day when he noticed some gold in the hills. Unlike most old prospectors who were always ready to boast about their finds, James kept his discovery a secret. Then in 1876, when he was discharged from the military, he, along with another prospector by the name of Harry McAllister, went out and staked these claims. Cooney and his partner kept their claim a secret. However, other prospectors started to suspect these two men were up to something, and soon others were following them out into the rugged hills. It was at this time that other prospectors came across showings of gold and silver, and soon there was a small stampede of miners. It was at this time that the Apache noticed more and more prospectors invading their territory and started to do raids on the mine camps. It was in one of these raids in the spring of 1880 that 3 miners were killed, and James Cooney was one of them. This Apache raid became known as the Alma Massacre, in which 13 sheep herders were said to have been killed. However, even with the threat of being killed in an attack, miners continued to be lured into the district because of the richness of this gold and silver. During the first few years, miners just lived in tents, but in 1889 a miner by the name of John Eberly built the first wooden structure to live in, and soon construction of other buildings followed. It is said the second building to be constructed was a jail followed by a post office. A school was built in 1892. By the mid-1890s there were between 3,000 and as many as 4,000 people in the district. The town had a couple of restaurants, 5 saloons, a couple of hotels, and a couple of general stores. There were several mines in the camp. However, the biggest mine was the Little Fanny May Mine. This mine was the most profitable mine, however the worker turnover was very high. The silver and gold that was mined here was embedded in quartz, and when being crushed, the dust was extremely toxic. This dust caused the miners to get what was called miner's consumption, which was like black lung that coal miners would get, or as we know today, it would referred to as a type of silicosis. The average miner only lasted a couple of years working these mines, and a lot of these men died young. Like most old mine towns we read about, this town had its share of fires. The first fire in 1894 burned pretty much most of the town down. After that, construction was started in brick or stone. Then more fires came in 1904, 1910, and 1915. The last fire was in 1942. As if fires weren't bad enough, this town also saw its share of floods. During the years of 1894, 1896, 1899, and 1914, the town saw flooding that washed away mine tailings, mine dumps, homes, buildings, bridges, and people. During the early years, law enforcement was almost non-existent, so this town saw lots of gamblers, cattle rustlers, and other bandits who were on the run and were wanted by the law. There's a real interesting story about this town that is actually quite humorous. All the ore and supplies were shipped to Silver City, and this was an 80-mile haul along rugged mountain trails. This 80-mile trail would take over 16 hours of travel time. With little to no law enforcement, this trail was a bandit's paradise. It is mentioned that between the years of 1872 and 1873, the stage was held up 23 times by the same bandit. The law did end up catching up with him, and it probably didn't end well. The mines took a hit with the silver panic of 1893, and some of the smaller mines never started back up. Some of the other mines started to see ore grades drop, and by 1910 the population had dropped to under 2,000. After the First World War, metal prices dropped once again and most of the smaller mines shut down. The only remaining mine operating was the Little Fanny, which ran until 1952. At that point, the town pretty much became a ghost town. Over the years, the mines extracted around $20 million worth of gold and silver. This was at a time when silver averaged only around 50 cents an ounce and gold was around $20. During that time, 25% of New Mexico's silver production came from the mines in this district. Now, as mentioned earlier, I have some old archive photos of the town and district that were taken in the 1940s. You can still go out to the town of Mogollon today. From what I have read, the road going into the town is narrow with switchbacks. There is supposed to be a few people who still live there. Looking at images on the internet, it looks like there has been an honest effort to keep some of the old buildings in nice condition. Well, that's it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed this short story about the mines and old town of Mogollon. Please like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to bring you more old lost mine stories.